So today is the 24th day of Kislev. Tonight is Chanukah, also the 25th of December. And Chanukah is the holiday of paradox, of holding paradox, because the whole idea was that at the time, Hellenism, which was taking over the world entirely after Alexander, so one of the basic tenets of the Greeks, of Hellenism, of Greek philosophy, is to learn from the material world. And in the material world, the definition of an object is something that has an extension in space. Something that has extension. This has extension. It's extended in space. And one of the tenets is no two objects can occupy the same space. That's the basic idea. So that's where you get the principle of A and not A cannot be together at the same time. Meaning you can't have a thing and its opposite together at the same time. So if you're talking about physical things, it means that they can't occupy the same space. If you're talking about something that's an idea or a spiritual, so it's either this or that. You can't have both of them at the same time. Obviously they don't occupy space, but they occupy logical space. So it's either A or not A, but you can't have A and not A. A being some proposition. The man is tall, you can't say the man is tall and the man is not tall at the same time. They can't both be true at the same time. So that in Hebrew is called higayon. Right, higayon. That there's a logic. That's a logical space. And when the Jews encountered this idea, it was very compelling to many people. And it raised the level of understanding of things and so on. It was very, very compelling. But then it started running up against all kinds of things in Torah. The most important being the Ark of the Covenant, which is both there and not there. There's a source of paradox. So, and that was a physical thing even. It wasn't it was like to show that in the same space you can be and not be at the same time. So that's the real source of our paradox. But it ran up against 1,000 places, because the whole concept of God is that He's beyond paradox, that He sustains the paradox, He's not against it. So, how do you say not logically in Hebrew? So you say bli higayon. Right? So higayon is logic, and bli higayon is without logic. So the idea of Chanukah is that you have both light and darkness together. Right? As you're lighting the menorah, you get light and darkness together until it's all light. But you have to go through the first stages. You have to go through the stages of, first of all, understanding that light and dark can be together. In the same space. Mamish in the same space. And as much as you see the light, you will also be able to see the dark.
With error,
with everything.
With time.
With time. Everywhere. So that was the philosophical, we'll call it the intellectual battle against the darkness of logic. Logic is not dark in and of itself, it's just dark if you take it to its logical extreme and say this is all there is. The moment you accept something that's bli higayon, that doesn't have logic to it, then you're okay. And it's a very interesting thing that the place that these words, bli higayon, they become higayon libi. You can transform them into the words higayon libi. That's the words of the heart. Without logic, in Hebrew is the same letters as the words of the heart, higayon alev. Hege, it comes from the word hege, to utter, to speak. When we speak to Hashem, that's where we sustain the paradox much, much more strongly. And so so there's a little thing about Chanukah today, maybe something tomorrow also. How is this all connected to what we're seeing now? So the whole thing of faith, in the beginning, when you look at faith, and like we said, it's called mochin de katnut. Faith is just a small-mindedness. It's like you can say the guy is not logical. Okay, he's not logical, but he hasn't learned a lot of philosophy. But at least he davens, he prays. And he has higayon alev. So let's see now where he's going to take this. So now he says that when they went to take them out of Egypt and to bring them to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Canaan, El Eretz Tova Uchava, what does that mean? It means that they're going to go to a place where there's something even more. Hitrachavut hadat, he called it. Ki b'Mitzrayim k'tiva ya'amen ha'am. In Egypt, all they could have, the fifth line from the bottom, I don't know where there it is. After El Eretz Tova Uchava. On page Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. So I'm sorry, I forgot to... I do have it here. So from Egypt to the land of Israel, they traveled through the wilderness, which represents an intermediate state. Oh, no. Sorry. We're still up here. Do you have this? Ki b'Mitzrayim, because in Egypt, it's explained that the spiritual concept of the exodus from Egypt represents a departure from narrowness and poverty of the soul. So you're going out of Oni Mitzrayim, out of that poverty of Egypt, which is what? Which is a poverty in knowledge and dat. This is the meaning of the verse: I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to a good and broad land. In Egypt it is written, and the people believed. That's in Exodus 4:31. What do you mean they believed? What did they believe? That's all they could do. They didn't know. It's very interesting. The argument today, like in Israel also today, here that we're living now, is what makes us into a people. Okay? The left has given up on this concept. The left has given up on because they want cosmopolitanism. They want you to be a citizen of the world. And it's even more than that. There's a guy who was not from, his name is Gadi Taub. And he wrote a book called Nayadim and the Nayachim. You would basically translate it as laptop and desktop. The laptops are the people who feel that they can travel anywhere they want and they'll fit in. And the desktops are the ones who feel that they have to be here in the land of Israel to fit in, to have their space. And what does this mean? That when they first came, when Zionism first was able to get people out of Europe, it built on one of the definitions that was built into Judaism, which is that we're a people because we're connected to the land of Israel. But for the left, that's gone already. It doesn't mean anything to them anymore. Because now they want to be, that's what they call post-Zionism. We're also opposed to that big capital Zionism. We don't care about that. But Zionism itself, that's one of the tenets of Judaism, that this is the land that God wants us to be in. This is the only place where we can serve Hashem fully. So you have to redefine what it means to be a people. Because that held for a number of years, maybe 100 years even. But now we have to redefine what it means to be a people. So we have a definition from Rav Saadia Gaon that we're a people because of the Torah. That's the simplest thing. But for a lot of people, they don't understand what Torah means. But to know Torah is already dat. To have a connection to Torah, that's already a person who has some dat.
You're not there yet here.
And in Egypt, all they had was Vayamina'am. They didn't have the Torah yet. Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. The Torah,
they didn't have it yet,
right? They didn't have it. So there, it's like technically they didn't have it. What do you mean they didn't have it? Of course they had it, because Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had it. They had it. It was the same teachings, just restructured and rewritten when Moses had his revelation. But in the end, the Torah made them into a people. So before they had that, before they had the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, this Hayom Hazeh Niyata La'am. Hashem says to them, where did Rav Saadia go and get this idea that you become a people through Torah? That's what it says, that today you became a people. He doesn't say that to them after God doesn't say that to the Israelites after they crossed the Red Sea.
Yeah, right.
He says it to them the day they received the Torah, because this will make you into a people now. Now it's a process. Every generation it's a new process, because what the Torah is and how you accept it and so on, it needs a lot of explanation. It's not like you can take some kind of book off a shelf, dust it off from 3,000 years of dust, if that's the way you feel, and suddenly it'll become relevant. You need to work on it. So in any case, so they were still just in a state of faith. He says this is a lower state. This is how they were in Egypt. By contrast, the good and broad land represents the expansion of knowledge. Eretz Tova Uchava yitrachavut hadat. When you come to the land of Israel, so he says, it's interesting. He doesn't say it's the Torah that gives it to you. It's not even the Torah. It's not that Hashem promised, that Moses promised them, once you get the Torah, then you'll have a good and wide da'at. You'll have knowledge of God. He says, no, you have to come to the good and wide land. Why? Because there was no yet ability. Even then, even with Moses, there was no ability yet to understand the concept of breaking the borders. of going beyond borders. Eretz Tova Uchava means that it's always wide. You never feel that there is something cringing on you and encroaching on you. There's no limit. I'm saying, why didn't he say that I'll give you the Torah and that'll give you that?
Yes.
So he says, no, here it's that you'll come to the land and that's when you'll have that.
What does that mean about breaking barriers?
Because Eretz Yisrael, it says, is like a tzvi.
Yeah.
It says it's like a deer.
Yes.
It stretches.
Well, that's breaking barriers.
Okay. That's the. It's like you're in it and you feel that there's no barriers.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing. Then that's what they say about the United States. They say there's no go west.
Well, it's like the opposite. Correct?
But as much as it's the idea is that as big as the United States is.
Yes.
I read in a blog from someone yesterday, it has the cultural equivalence of a cornfield. It's all the same.
Oh, okay.
It's all the same.
I see.
Wherever you go, it's exactly the same. I mean, obviously the geography is a little bit different, the climate is different, but in the end, it's all the same.
Yeah.
In Eretz Yisrael, it's good and wide because it says Eretz Yisrael memuzeket mikol ha'aratzot. It has everything in it. Every single type of culture in the world is here.
Very small.
In a very, very small, you can drive it in 5 hours in each direction and you're finished.
Yeah.
Even when it becomes bigger, it doesn't matter. It still feel the same that you have, because it's wide and, again, in your dot, in your capacity to grasp God, how wide God is, how big God is. That's what happens here. So he says, so good and wide land represents the expansion of knowledge, meaning of dot, and comprehension in the infinite light of the Blessed One. Okay? That's what you grasp in the land of Israel. The infinite revelation of God. And then he says to them, a couple of verses, the verse before, you will know God. This is how you're going to know God. By the way, this is in the beginning of Va'era. And there we have the 4 lishonot of Geula, the 4 verbs that relate to the redemption. So it says, I will take out, I will save, I will take, and I will redeem. And then on Seder night, we know we had a 5th one, Ve'eveti. This Maharal was very big on this because the Maharal was already the glimmer of the Geula, the glimmer of this redemption. So Ve'eveti is I will bring them. Ve'eveti etchem el eretz tova uchava v'idatem ki ani Hashem. And you will know that I am Hashem. So the Zohar doesn't stop there. The Zohar adds 2 more. He says there's 2 more Lashonot of Geula. V'idatem. This is the 6th one. You will know, meaning I'll take you out, I'll redeem you, I'll save you, I'll bring you, and then you will know is the 6th verb of redemption. Va'iti lachem lelokim. Va'iti is the 7th one. And I will be your God. Meaning that it's the expansion of that. It's all about the expansion of that. V'zeu b'chinat gadlut. And this is what it means to have a state of great-mindedness, godless. Shenikudat halev ba'a migadlut hadat. And he says, really what we call the ability of the heart, it's called the point of the heart, the pintal yid, sometimes they call it. But really what they mean there, they took this from the Zohar, it's called nikudat halev, the point of the heart. And the point of the heart is a point that is infinite. That even a person who is limited can grasp the infinity of God. How can that be? How can the finite grasp the infinite? So that's a whole discussion in the Zohar. It's a very seminal discussion that everybody quotes all the time. The Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to see how the patriarch served God, and he can't. He doesn't understand. So Rashbi comes to him. He's talking there to as Raya Mehemna, talking to Rashbi's soul. Rashbi is talking to Moses' soul, and he says to him, "It's true that you can't see with your eyes, but you can see with the point of your heart, or the will of your heart." What do you mean? He says there in the point of the heart, it can contain the infinite. Even though you can't usually talk about this, it's not something you can see. It's not logical. It's a paradox that the finite can contain the infinite. So that's called nekudat halev ba'a migadlut hadat, and this only develops after a person has great mindedness. That he sees the expansion of God's infinite revelation. ואז ההתפעלות בתענוג ומתיקות. And then you have true awakening and an expanded awareness. And there's an emotional response of delight and sweetness. And this is the secret of the phrase a good land, Eretz Tova. Tova means that it's good in the sense that it gives you, good, the external meaning is that it's good for agriculture and it grows very nice fruit and vegetables, which it does. They're really the best in the world, I think. But more importantly, if you understand what this land does, then you have expanded consciousness and you feel the goodness of it, the sweetness of it.
It only happens when the Jews are there.
Or like in Chabad, in Malchut Eretz Yisrael, somehow you come to this through the Torah. You come to this, but you have to make this the land of Israel. Wherever you are, you have to make it the land of Israel. But now he says there's an important thing. There's an intermediate stage. What's the intermediate stage? That they went through the wilderness. And this also happens before the final redemption, right? That's Jeremiah's famous, I think it's chapter 33, where he talks about "V'lakachti otchem b'midbar ha'amim." I will take you through the wilderness of the nations. Back then, it wasn't the wilderness of the nations; just wilderness. It wasn't called the wilderness of the nations when Moses took the people out of Egypt. It's just through the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? So there always has to be an intermediate stage between Egypt and between the land of Israel. הוא בחינה מומצאת בין תכלית הקטנות, שהוא בחינת אמונה, ענה לגדלות הדת, ועל זה נאמר, לכתך אחרי במדבר, וכתיב אחרי השם אלוקיכם תלכו. So this intermediate state between the ultimate small-mindedness, which we said is faith, as described above, and the expanded awareness of knowledge that you get in the land of Israel. Regarding this, it is said, I remember how you followed me in the wilderness, and after the Lord your God you shall walk. So this is called Achoraim. So they were in the state of Achoraim, the state of Katnut Mochin, and this was especially true in the wilderness as they walked through the wilderness. So the wilderness is a state of back-to-back. Amen. Amen.
The explanations, who writes those explanations in addition to what in the text here? In English, there's more.
A little bit more, maybe. Maybe I added a little.
Did you add more to say?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that the Achoraim, that the backside, is the wilderness, the state in the wilderness.
The what is inside?
Achoraim, the backside, meaning back to back, is being in a state of wilderness. It's not a complete, it's not Emunah yet.
Back to that.
It's not all the way to Emunah like it was in Egypt. It's still, it's an intermediate state. So this we'll see, B'ezras Hashem, tomorrow we'll start taking that apart, the face and the back. אני חושב, אני לא יודע, אני כבר לא זוכר מי עשה את זה.
זה לא מופיע כאן באנגלית, בספרות האלה.
כן, קצת, תמיד באנגלית זה קצת יותר...
זה לא AI עושה את זה, זה לא...
יכול להיות. אבל אני עובר על זה אחר כך.